So my name is Greg Hansen. I'm the fleet administrator for Washington State. I've got 28 years with Washington State. 16 was in highway maintenance, 2 years as the snow and ice expert for the state, and then the rest is in fleet. So today I'm just going to give you a brief overview of stuff in Washington, talk about a couple of new things we're doing, and we'll just go from there. So and some of you have seen this, the fleet guys have, that internal to WSHEMA, but part of this I'm doing for the rest of the audience. This particular slide I use a lot to talk and show folks that we're more than just cars and sedans. Over 90% of the equipment we use keeps the road safe. It allows the bridge guys to do their thing, allows the drill crews to do their thing, which helps construction projects. So, you know, everything we do plays a critical part in keeping the roads open. So this is Washington State. We're broken into 6 regions. We used to be called districts, and at some point we became regions. The state's broken in pretty much in half. The Cascades, the east side of the state is more of desert, dry, more snow, colder weather. The west side, rain, and more trees. So here's kind of our stats. I have 211 FTEs, of which 180 of them are wrench turning folks, including 15 radio techs. We have 220,000 or 20,000 lane miles, so on and so forth. We're a little unique. We have 46 rest areas, 3,500 bridges, and then they track culverts, traffic signals, signs, so on and so forth. This is kind of a makeup of the fleet. We've got about 5,000 rolling stock, things with wheels for the most part. We vary from underbridge inspection trucks. Both of our floating bridges have boats. The latest boat we just finished is $3.2 million. So it's a 52-foot bridge tender. So because they're going to put light rail down the middle of the bridge, all the maintenance work is now going to have to be done from the boat. So it takes pretty much an act of Congress to take a lane on the I-90 bridge now. What used to have shoulders on the edge, because they took the center lane for transit, there's no more shoulders. So there'll be impacts to traffic as you have breakdowns, because now they'll have to wait for the tow guy to come out and grab them and shove them off the road. I have another 10,000 other things, I call them. So we do the MATS lab, nuke gauges, all the radio equipment, field engineering, fuel system, all the other ancillary stuff. In the state, we have our own fuel system, 126 fuel sites statewide. That's just kind of a dotting of where they're at. It's probably about 50-50 right now of above ground sites versus below ground sites. We're in a process right now of replacing, most of our below ground sites are over 30 years old. So we're not getting funding. You know, we're the same as others, that funding is pretty tight. So we've started a process to start replacing fuel sites. So we're concentrating on the below ground fuel sites to bring them above ground in most cases. And the average fuel site for us is about $700,000 to $800,000 a piece by the time we're done. Big stormwater regulations in Washington State. So what we used to have as a fuel site now has to have a retention pond, so that any little drippings go to a retention pond, and so that just adds to the cost of doing business. This is our system. It's an automated fuel system. We have Asset Works. We're using TLS 450s to collect the data. Basically our system it's a live system, so when you pull up to the fuel site, swipe your card, enter your number. If you try to enter just a fictitious number, the system is live. It's talking to our fleet management system, and it'll say, no, that's not correct. But we don't want to deny anybody fuel. So if you do it 3 times in a row, and some folks know that, then it'll let you in anyway. Yeah, we try to keep people honest. As a way to get better data collection, we're doing the ring technology, similar to Wyoming. So primarily the way it works is you put a ring on the vehicle, and there's a little black box that talks to the computer on the vehicle. As soon as you pull up with, in this case, this is our road wire on the left, You pull up to the fuel island. The old way of doing it was you pull up, get your card out, swipe your card, put in your PIN number, put in the odometer, and go fuel. The way it works now, that we're doing this, it'll take us probably another year to finish everything, but you pull up, you lift the nozzle, stick it in the hole, and it will automatically download the data through our fuel system RFID equipment to our fleet management system. So that's how we're getting more accurate data. You fill up, it already knows you can have gas or diesel. Hang it back up and off you go. So as the customer, they like it because they have to remember nothing. They just pull up and do it. And we're approving, I don't really care who fuels, I care more about what the fuel's going into. So we're even stretching it to, in some cases, we're putting the rings on gas cans. So when they're filling up their 5-gallon gas can, we actually know where the fuel is going. So we're doing this, eventually it will be on all rolling stock. So as I mentioned earlier, we have AVL on all of our dump trucks, Vectors, sweepers, but we're actually going to collect, this data allows us to collect fault codes on the equipment, idle time. For anybody that's ever tried to pull idle time on one of your big trucks, it's just not as easy as it appears. Someone's got to hook up the computer, download it. In many cases, you've got to take that data, then crunch it into something you can understand. This is a lot simpler. Some of the new stuff we're working on, we're going to pilot renewable diesel, same as the rest of you. My intent of doing this is proof of concept. We're positive it's going to be fine, but we're going to show it. And right now, we'll probably have pushback because we're going to use renewable diesel with palm oil. And then as quantities improve, we'll transition to another, but at least I can call it a pilot and do proof of concept. About a year ago, we started using air disc brakes. Many of you know the new regulations are coming out for Class 8 trucks and above for shorter stopping distance. We've had issues, and probably anybody that deals with a mountain pass and a lot of sand and salt, rear disc brakes or rear drum brakes tend to groove a lot because the sand gets in there. So we're replacing those yearly. We don't have that issue right now with air disc brakes. To swap out disc brakes takes much less time to do it. A lot less, you don't have to tear stuff apart as much. So far, knock on wood, we've been successful. We started with Bendix, we swapped over to Wabco. The primary reason is Wabco's given us a 5-year warranty on the system. So that's pretty hard to beat. And then we're doing practical design. How many in here have heard of the word practical design? So Steve has in Idaho. So in Washington, there's a big push to do practical design. And for the layman, for me, basically all that means is common sense. So an example in the construction world of practical design is we've slated $5 million to do this interchange because we've had 2 or 3 accidents, and so it's on the project list, comes up. If you look at it from a practical design and review it, had we just cut down maybe 7 or 8 trees, we wouldn't have had to do the entire interchange. So it's a relook at projects, kind of from a common sense, not just what it looks like on paper. So we're doing that on every project now, they're reviewing it. For us, we did a pilot on our U-bit trucks. So some of the states have already rebuilt. We've never rebuilt a U-bit truck. So for us, the older U-bit trucks at 10 years, you had to have them refurbished or get rid of them. The newer ones are at 12 years. So this is the bridge to Whidbey Island. So I don't know if you can really tell that, but that's quite the ride riding that U-bit truck. So basically, we thought we'd try. We had maintenance is getting into bridge washing, so they needed an additional U-bit truck. So we have U-bit trucks. All the U-bit trucks in Washington State DOT belong to the bridge guys, and they do bridge inspections. Maintenance has a separate program to wash bridges. Because of our ecology and environmental concerns with bridge washing, in the past we'd have to diaper all of the bridges to wash them. That's the regulations. We went through and did a permit with ecology and said, hey, if we clean them every year, can we get away from diapering them? And ecology agreed to that. But in order to get out to clean every single bridge, and we've got a list of all the various different types of bridges. In order to do that, maintenance needed an additional U-bit to keep up with, because bridge couldn't do it by themselves. So we had a U-bit come up for replacement. Maintenance was interested, instead of spending $800,000, we spent about $400,000. We sent it back to get rebuilt, and now we're waiting for the data to come through. Will this thing last another 10 years? So all of the upper components have been redone. Will the cab and chassis make it that long? All the ancillary stuff, that Jeff talked about. So we can certainly replace tires, and if the transmission goes, that's fairly, so we're saving $400,000 initially, and I can buy a lot of engines and transmissions for that, but we'll have to wait on downtime and other stuff. So that's our version of practical design in the fleet side of things. I promised you guys I'd send you the fuel additives, so since we're taping these, you'll be able to get the link. For those in the back, for a long time, I'd get inundated daily with a salesman with the better mousetrap for a fuel additive that will save me tons of money because it'll clean my fuel better, we'll get increased fuel mileage, and so on and so forth. So it was just inundated. And then the legislature got involved because someone knew someone knew someone, and then the phone's ringing more going, you will do this. And so we started looking around. The EPA has a program that actually tests fuel additives, fuel devices. It's been around for a long time. I think they're down to just a couple folks that do this, but I still use this link. And so our policy in the state is if you want to introduce a fuel additive, you've got to go through the EPA's approval process, which costs someone, I've been told, about $60,000. So the EPA will then test it independently and actually see if your product works. If you go to the website and look, the last time something had been approved was like 1978. So it's if someone comes up with something, we'll all know about it. So that's, and I'm going to leave you here, and then I'll ask questions. I've got one more. Some of you might have seen this, but I thought I'd leave it on a light note here. So sometimes things are not as they appear.
Oh. Look at the cute dog.
There's brownies at the break. Thanks, Greg.
The preceding video was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found at tsp2.org. That's tsp2.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.